Hey, this is Edge Radio. That was Everything is Fine by LT. And this is Media Tackle.
Media Tackle.
Media Tackle. I like the imagery of the show's name, Media Tackle. Was actually coined by my son, who is a mad fisherman and was thinking of fishing and said you should just call it, put tackle in there somewhere. So yes, we have this tackle idea. But when I think of tackle, I do think, even though I'm not a sports person, I do think about a rugby scrimmage in a tackle, and metaphorically, of course, tackling the media rather than the ball. What do you think when you hear media tackle?
Yeah, I did think it was sort of going to be sporting, sort of.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted. Not. All right, so you did have a sporting, not fishing? I mean, I could do fishing.
Yeah, fishing works.
Okay, but we're not doing fishing. This is all about the media part of the tackle, media tackle. So here we're going to be looking at ideas and projects and things that are kind of media or media adjacent, or everything in and around the world of media. People that want media, I can be a conduit. I am part of media to spread the word. So let's get down to business. So the inaugural show, what I've brought in, I've had the pleasure of bringing in is Taylor.
Hello.
Who has a show himself here on Edge Radio, K-pop Reverse, which we'll talk about a bit later. But where I'm really keen to talk a little bit to you now is your thesis project. A lot of people out there might not know what a thesis is. So do you want to tell people what a thesis is?
Well, basically, a thesis is something that you do after your degree for no reason.
No, there's a reason for it.
It's for sort of like research, getting into research more.
Yeah, so typically at the point a student's going to be doing a thesis, it's their fourth year of studies at a university, so they've usually completed their undergraduate studies, and then they can do what's called an honors year, where they get to focus on a research project, right? So they get to choose a project. Now, you did your project in the media school here at the University of Tasmania?
Yes, I did.
And full, actually, disclosure, I was involved a little bit in your project at the start,
yes,
right?
You were.
As a supervisor.
As my supervisor.
Yeah. So that's where I knew about this project from, and I really wanted to see how it completed. So your project title, which I guess is a great place to start, is Cultural Intermediaries in K-pop. So talk me a bit through this idea of cultural intermediaries in K-pop. What was the project about?
Well, first of all, it started on sort of trying to define what cultural intermediaries exactly was. So there was a bit of trouble around that because there is a plethora of different researchers putting what they think a cultural media intermediary is. And so it was just trying to sort through a whole ton of research into creating something that would fit within the sort of schema of K-pop.
So an intermediary is someone that is in between things, right?
Yeah.
So they're kind of, we could think of it like as a translator or a kind of someone that's circulating ideas. So your project was based on K-pop, Korean popular music, as its case study. And then you were looking at these intermediaries, these people that are then kind of circulating or kind of between us. Like here we are in Tassie. You're doing this project in Tasmania. And to my knowledge, there's no K-pop bands here. There's K-pop music here.
Yeah.
There's a karaoke place here.
Yeah.
Maybe plural. I think there might be two.
Yeah, I think there might be two, yeah.
Yeah. So there's certainly spaces where people can encounter K-pop, but it does require a little bit of explanation to some people.
It does,
right?
Yes.
So I guess your project is looking at those people that explain and popularize K-pop.
Yes.
Around the world. So, which you are one of them yourself, of course. You yourself are a walking, talking, living intermediary, cultural
try.
intermediary. You should put that on your CV, cultural intermediary of K-pop music. So, okay, so there you are. You're doing your project. So it takes a year to complete this honors thesis. And you did, what was your method for your project?
Well, my method was to basically create a survey. Create a survey and put it out into the world and then see what people said. And what I was looking for was how people interacted with cultural intermediaries, how people acted as cultural intermediaries, because there is a big difference between cultural intermediaries and fan labour. So people that engage in fan labour can just be anybody in the public. People that are cultural intermediaries they need to have a sense of professionalism about it. So someone who talks on the radio about K-pop, like me, is a cultural intermediary.
So because they're also explaining, contextualizing, advocating their interest, their cultural interest, right?
Yeah.
So it could be food, right? So while I don't like his food, you could think of Jamie Oliver as a cultural intermediary, like those shows he does where he tries to get British people to eat better food, right? So he's this person that's translating better food to people who don't eat better food, and he's an intermediary, right? He's a middle ground space. So, and how did that go? Did you, so you did the survey, you got a couple of people replying to it.
Yeah.
How did that go?
I don't really know what to say.
you had some conclusions. People, I guess, did you find that being and performing the cultural intermediary role met your expectations, given that you are a cultural intermediary yourself?
A lot of people interact with cultural intermediaries all the time, in anything. Started playing a song.
Yeah, well, we'll go into a song while you think about that answer.
Okay.
And you're listening here to Edge Radio. This is Media Tackle. Thanks. All right, you're listening to Edge Radio. This is Media Tackle. I'm Craig Norris, PhD. Just drop the knowledge. And we listened there to Never Chang. No, I think that should be Change. Never Change by Snowy Band. And then we had No Nightmare by One Thrix Point Never. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're talking about music, but not the music that you're listening to. We're talking about K-pop music, and we were talking a little bit about your survey. But during the music break, you told me some theories, or that you further developed this theory of the cultural intermediary further, which was fascinating. So let's talk about that a bit further.
Okay, so as I mentioned previously, there has been heaps and heaps of theories about cultural intermediaries, and I have sort of developed my own, which was to separate cultural intermediaries into two sort of separate areas: primary cultural intermediaries and secondary cultural intermediaries. Primary ones are sort of more part of the industrial process. They can be part of the company themselves as well, but they have a very important aspect of being able to shape the tastes of the public. Whereas secondary cultural intermediaries are ones that are more like me, which are just fans who are very interested in something and then sort of develop a product sort of as well.
And I guess what we're looking here specifically are examples where you're trying to introduce something like a new product or a new experience or a new thing into the public or your friends, right? So the first category you mentioned, the primary one, is kind of industry-based. So certainly I know with Japanese popular culture, manga and anime in Australia, there's companies like Madman Entertainment that would have as their agenda this idea that they're by fans, for fans, and they're explaining, manga and anime while they're also selling it. And so the idea is, they're cultural intermediaries because they're also explaining some of the culture around it. But they're driven by the dollar still, right? So it's got to make financial sense. Whereas, like the local fan clubs here from Manga and Anime, the Icon guys who do the Anime Island convention and so forth, would be that secondary category where they're still explaining and kind of proselytizing.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of missionary type vibe. So what we're talking about, basically, here we go. We're talking about the church system in a way, right? So the spread of Catholicism, similarly, it operates in this way, right? You have evangelists who might be kind of ordained by the church, right? They're your primary cultural intermediaries who would be endorsed, and they've got the kind of expectations and performance management indexes of the church. I assume they use them. And they're, I'm kind of thinking here of like the classic kind of, what do we think of medieval Renaissance period where you have that kind of conquistadors and missionaries, right? So then you have those people, right, who are spreading the word of the Bible, right? But then you have these secondary cultural intermediaries who might be, if we use the language of the 18th century, natives who have been converted into Christianity, who are then telling their parents and their kids, hey, you should also get on board with this Christianity. And they would be secondary cultural intermediaries from your definition.
Basically, yeah.
Wow, isn't that interesting? Yeah, we've busted that wide open. So it's probably, what's interesting here for me, though, is that, that's a concept, of course, that could be applied superficially. I mean, I feel there's more depth here that we're missing. But it is interesting that it can be applied to explain popular culture, right? Through popular culture, here we're just talking about K-pop. But potentially it could be an entry point to talk also about religious conversion. Not that we're doing projects on religious conversion, but it is interesting how suddenly you realize, wow, that mechanics seems a little similar to the mechanics of, and I guess part of that was trying to explain, like, how do I explain this system in a way which is, if you're not into K-pop and pop culture, might be. So, in your experience of K-pop, do you think that there are people that behave like, like, are there, like, one of the really interesting things about the spread of any religion is that point at which you have the kind of heretics and heresy and the Inquisition breaks out, right? So does that work in this space as well? Like, you have these debates which suddenly occur where people are saying, you're wrong, you've got the wrong fandom, or you're supporting this K-pop artist, and they're now blacklisted, they've now transgressed, and you have to repent your fandom of it. Does that happen in K-pop?
Oh, a lot. It is probably one of the most toxic fandoms I've ever experienced, really. And that has only gotten worse with the rise in international fans as well.
But the music's so, bubbly. If I think of K-pop, I think kind of bubbly, teen girls singing kind of Kylie Minogue type songs. I mean, this dates me a bit, but Kylie Minogue is... What was it? She got an award recently as being the artist that sells albums every year or something that charts. And she's beaten the Beatles, or she's up there equivalent with the Beatles and other luminaries. So I think of Kylie Minogue when I think of that kind of poppy singer. But they're kind of bands, and they're poppy, and they're bubbly. But you're saying the fandom's toxic.
It is.
Or some of the fandom. I don't see you as toxic.
No, of course, there's always good parts and bad parts of anything. But it's just, in terms of inter fan conflict, is quite prevalent. What's
the big scandal that's breaking out at the moment? Is there something that's tearing the fandom apart leading into Christmas 2020?
There's always something going on, but at the moment they've just released. So actually, this is to do with my project as well. I wrote about Produce 101, which is a show over there, which is sort of like, Australian Idol, sort of something like that, where you've got people that go in, but they're trainees from different companies, and they end up and they're trying to. They compete against each other for a chance to debut as a group. And
so a bit like Australian Idol, or
yeah. But they debut as a group. So there's 11, but it's exactly like that otherwise. And the fellow that was the director and the producer as well, they got caught sort of manipulating the rankings.
Right, so totally scamming the system. They were corrupt, and they were taking bribes or something, and they were rigging it so that this one boy band or girl band, what was it? Girl band won, even though they didn't get the votes or something.
Yeah.
It's like the... I was going to be topical and talk about the American election, but let's just avoid any discussion of that. So is that what happened? The vote got rigged?
Yeah, the votes got rigged, and they've just released, I think it was 2 days ago, all of the people that would have gotten in.
So what happened? So they just released 2 days ago...
As part of the appeal trial, they released the names of the people that would have gotten in, but they had been manipulated to not go in.
Right. So this is playing out right now. And 2 days ago, so this scandal got blown wide open by. Do we know who was it? Was it a whistleblower or was it an investigative journalist?
I feel like I should know because it's part of my thesis, but no, I don't remember.
That's right. It's probably best that remains a murky mystery. But anyway, so 2 days ago, they then, which is a kind of bittersweet announcement, they announced, hey, you would have actually been highly ranked if the system wasn't corrupt.
Yeah.
And so are those guys taking legal action? Is there much... I mean, where do they go next? Does the fandom uprise and DDoS everyone, or...
At the moment, it seems to be sort of like a class action against the people because as part of it, people had to pay to vote.
No way.
So...
You had to pay to vote?
Yeah.
How do you pay to vote?
Well, it's sort of like, where you, like, for Australian Idol and things like that, where you text in, sort of things like that. So it is essentially costing you money.
Right, yeah, because it costs... But, yeah, and you're texting to a particular number which has a particularly high... charge connected to it or something? Or?
I'm not entirely sure. It might have been online or something, but I'm pretty sure that it was
through that transaction. There was money that was directly, indirectly. Okay, right. So the fans, you had to make an effort to vote.
Yeah,
and they would be outraged.
I'm pretty sure they are.
Could you vote? Did you vote, or was it only?
Oh no, it was only. I think it was Korean and Japan, but it might have
Korea
just been
and
Korean.
Japan, right? Yeah. Which is interesting. Yeah, it's a global fandom, but really the empire of it is Korea, of course. Unsurprisingly, given it's K-pop, and Japan, and really to interact in it, you need to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know anyone that does VPN to try to get around that, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a VPN to sort of watch the what's it called? The TV shows over there and stuff.
Yeah, and that is okay. That's because that's one of the other challenges of this material, of course, is that while we're in a wonderful environment of on-demand viewing and digital engagement, and the internet has everything, nevertheless there are geo-blocking and so forth. So yeah, a lot of these shows you can't watch locally unless you use a VPN.
Yeah, but the thing is, I would buy it if it was here, just available here. Through streaming, through DVDs, but it's not. It's just not.
Yeah, even in globally, I guess that's a problem. Like Americans have difficulty accessing it. Like these peripheral markets are kind of still shut out from those spaces.
America does have sort of this online streaming service which does service them, but it only services America and South America, and so the rest of the world is kind of left.
Why would that be? Is it that there's not enough of an audience there to warrant a subscription service, or?
I think so. There's not that many fans in Australia, I think, compared to anywhere else. But I'm kind of surprised about Europe. I'm pretty sure there's a few fans there.
Yeah, with Eurovision.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I'm sorry, I'm clichéing it in terms of it's bubbly. So, but I do see a bit of a crossover there with the kind of extroverted kind of performativity of the K-pop space with the Eurovision. Is there a equivalent Eurovision thing in Asia where they challenge these geographies? Like, of course, you got J-pop and K-pop, and do they battle? Are there J-pop v K-pop battles? Kind of.
I haven't heard of that yet.
Yeah,
but...
well, there we go. Right here, we're calling out the need for a K-pop v J-pop battle. I'm thinking it has a lot of transmedia potential with some, Street Fighter-esque fighting sim that's linked to it. Because I know in Japan, at the end of every year, they have what's called the red-white singing competition, which is telecast. It's one of those things like everyone tunes in. It's New Year's Eve, and everyone watches this thing, and it's a real ritual. And what it involves is they segregate the Japanese popular music scene into men and women.
Okay.
And they compete against each other, right? So all the male boy bands versus the female boy bands, the male crooner versus female crooner, and they battle each other singing. And it's the red versus white battle. And every year there's a winner and a loser in terms of the gender segregation. So these verse competitions, that's where I was really stunned by this idea of a versus competition in Japan, split across gender lines. Of course, Japanese pop music is huge and really popular. And there are any competitions like that in Korea, huge tournament values, or is it mainly these talent shows?
Well, they tend to have sort of music shows that happen every week. So at the end of every week, they'll show who the top sort of songs are, and they'll have them perform on the stage and do it across a whole multitude of different channels as well. But in particular, the one that I focused on my thesis, which was Produce 48, which is
the name of a TV show.
Name of a TV show, which is the third or fourth season, third season of the Produce 101 series, and the one that is currently going through all the trouble at the moment. So Produce 48, it's called Produce 48 because it's got produce from the Korean series, so it's got all the Korean trainees from all the major Korean companies, and then 48 from AKB48, the Japanese.
Oh, yeah, the Japanese, right.
Yeah. So
it doesn't, there's not 48 bands or something?
No.
An arbitrary
It was just
homage.
because they had...
Because 48, I think 48 refers to AKB48, of course, huge J-pop girl band group, enormous franchise. 48 refers to the number of people in the band? They have a huge number of people in their band.
They do have a huge number of people in the band.
48 sounds small. Okay, SMS us on 0488881107 if you know what the 48 stands for. You could check it out, but I've wanted to do an SMS call out. Right, yeah, that's interesting homage. So it does show that J-pop influenced K-pop, but K-pop is far and away more popular.
No, it's the fact that the members from AKB48 competed to go into the band.
Oh, in this Korean song. In this Korean TV show?
Into this Korean TV show to be in a Korean band.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did they get in?
There were 3.
So that rivalry, that rivalry is also a kind of respectful rivalry, a bit like the cricket teams. Here we go, tackle, mini tackle. The Australian cricket team, the English cricket team, right? They fight each other. They play against each other. And, but then there's also, many of the players in the, other competitions will come together, like the competitions in India and so forth. Wow. Okay. Well, look, all this talk of music's got me interested in music, so let's go to a music break. Here we'll listen to Oxygenate by Stormwater, a Tassie band. But keep listening on, Edge Radio, Media Tackle, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about Asian media and popular culture with Taylor. Okay, you're listening to Edge Radio. This is Media Tackle with Craig Norris, PhD, and Taylor, K-Poppyverse.
That's me.
Yes. And I really was thrilled to hear that song. I mentioned to Taylor, it's the first song I've recognized. Smashing Pumpkins. Huge fan, of course, Smashing Pumpkins from my own 20-something period. I won't date that at all, but great to see them. I think they're back, right? I think they're back. I've not heard that song before. That was Smashing Pumpkins with, a song I'd not heard before called Everlasting Gaze. Go Pumpkins. So here on Media Tackle with Craig Norris, PhD, and Taylor, K-Popverse, we're talking everything in and around the world of media and big ideas. Our big idea for today's session, I guess we're heading to the top of the hour where the show will end. Edge Radio will continue, though, just in case people were worried. Anyway, the big idea for today's session has been cultural intermediaries. I expect to see a lot of people wearing T-shirts saying that in the future. I think we've really championed that idea. In fact, I might change the name of this show.
Yeah.
Every week I'll change it to what the idea is for confusion. What I wanted to do, though, is talk a little bit about our first-hand experiences of K-pop or J-pop, right? Given that it's a type of music engagement which for many people who are not familiar with that kind of music engagement is odd. It's very different from going to a band at a pub and being in a mosh pit or banging your head to it. Do you see that? Heavy metal thing? Or sitting down or whatever it is, like in the Australian context, the Asian experience, or the Asian, particularly in Korea and Japan, is quite different. So, Taylor, you mentioned, what's your experience been of first-hand K-pop engagement?
So I haven't been to anything live, but I have. And that was because I think it was during my thesis, when I was supposed to be writing it, there was a online concert which I went to, and it's one of the best things I've been to.
So this was a concert online. So you opened your web browser. Mm-hmm. It could be Firefox or Chrome, Safari. What's the new Microsoft one? Edge?
Edge, yeah.
Of your discretion, and just URL. Sorry, I feel like I'm explaining how to get onto the internet. And there was this live match, right? So what was it, on YouTube or something? Live streamed? Or Twitch?
It was on one of their sort of own websites.
You had to pay for it. You had to buy a ticket. Yeah. And I'd imagine, like, if I was, like you said, it was, like, when you mentioned this during the music break, you said it was pricey.
It was pricey.
Like, it was pricey in comparison to what you'd pay for a live gig in the flesh, or was it around the same price, or?
It's pricey in what you would pay for a video. Right,
yeah, because you're thinking, oh, this is an online stream thing.
Yeah. And they're sort of in the upper echelons of becoming near the price of an actual live gig.
So what pushed you over the edge? Why did you decide, okay, but it's worth it, I should spend the money?
It's my favourite group.
Oh, what was the group again?
Eyes One.
Eyes One.
Yeah.
That's English? Eyes One?
Yeah, I as One, I think.
I as One.
I think it's supposed to be, but it's like Eyes One, yeah.
Ah.
And that's the group that came out of Produce 48 and is now having all the trouble.
Oh, really? These were the ones that got busted.
Yeah.
They were part of the band that got corruptly escalated to win. Wow. Did that tarnish your experience of watching? Did you know that before watching them live?
Yes.
Okay, how have they survived? How have they PR'd that? How have they said, denied any first-hand experience?
Well, yeah, it's the people didn't know what was going on. It was all in upper management and between companies.
So the poor singers, their press releases define them as the victim. Has the fandom had backed them up on that? The fandom's been behind them saying, we still love you?
Mostly. Others haven't. But the thing is, if you look at the people that have just been released a couple of days ago, you realise they wouldn't have fitted. They would not have fitted in with the concepts of the band. They wouldn't have fitted in with the sort of the stylization.
Right. So in that Talent Quest show, the people that, without the corruption would have won, your feeling was they weren't going to be a match anyway, really, for the direction and the tone of...
And that's even with one of the people being one of my favourites at the time of watching the show as well.
So maybe the management... And this would be, I guess, the debate that's on Reddit and other forum spaces, right? People contesting it. This would be the debate. People saying, actually, maybe this did play out for the best anyway. And that's an interesting moment, right? That point of, the what the popular mass or the elites are perceiving here. So it's an interesting moment there where obviously the management level decisions were, oh my God, the votes are coming in for these performers. The management's thinking this is not going to match the band. Yeah. We have to step in and rig it so that the singers that we know are going to fit get through so we can make it work. So it's interesting. You feel that in a way that was kind of for the best.
Yes, I
that it was
do.
rigged.
Yeah.
It's very undemocratic. Very Northern Korea, if you don't mind me getting political there. Okay. That way, so again, I just love that the party machinery, right? Sorry, I'm thinking North Korea now, kind of party machine. But I'm thinking that kind of, I mean, the K-pop space must have this very realpolitik commercial management system within it, right? Where it's like, you know, yes, there's a veneer of, sorry, in this case, it appears there's a veneer of democracy, of fandom matters, and we listen to fans, and we're all one big happy community. But then there are moments where, you know, actually it's a bit of a dictatorship. It's a classic commercial entity, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, if the CEO or those in management ultimately don't think what the crowdsourcing is. And we could go back to Bodie McBoatface, right? I mean, so many examples where people have said, no, let the people decide.
And then the people don't know how to decide well.
Or they need to decide super well in a meta way, in a meme way. They know how to decide. So they create Bodie McBoatface for the English, what was it, science vessel or something. Yeah. And which I always think is a great missed opportunity in terms of, then the management decides, oh my God, we can't actually let them decide. So we remove all those votes.
Yeah. So
look, I think it is a real crisis there. It's an interesting crisis for a commercial entity or a responsible public entity to face where they're getting feedback from the public that they don't want to hear or that don't match. So go back. You went to a live gig online.
Yes.
Paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
And was it worth it? What was the feeling? What did you do that you had your headphones on?
I thought it was really worth it because it was kind of like being there, except all of the like visual effects and everything were perfect because it was done through just one particular viewpoint.
So they didn't change viewpoints? They didn't like take you...
Yeah, they did
right.
change the viewpoints of the actual stage, but it was all constructed for that particular viewpoint at that particular time.
Well, it is interesting because, a lot of events are... It's interesting, like the Olympics is a classic example of this, where really the performance of the Olympics, particularly opening ceremonies, I'm thinking, and ending ceremonies, are choreographed and scripted for a television audience, not for a live audience, right? If you're there live watching the opening and closing ceremonies as an audience member, it's probably very underwhelming in a way in terms of what you see, right? You're there for the atmosphere, obviously, and there's a lot of things that you will get that you won't get if you're watching on TV. But ultimately, the experience is tailor-made for television in terms of those angles, being able to take it all in. It's very much intended for television. So this was a gig. Did you feel that parts of it was tailor-made for this online experience? Was there a live audience there as well?
No, because this was during COVID, of course.
So this was a strategy for them to still perform, have a concert.
But there was also a lot of audience interaction as well because they had these massive screens there that the performers could see that sort of had a live comment section that people were commenting at them.
Did they get toxic? How did that... I've been on Twitch. I see... Some interesting...
Well, it was paid for, so it was just fans.
And I imagine there would be a moderator still somewhat there.
Yeah, I think
Did you get anything up? Did you type anything?
Yeah.
Or what did you participate? How was your participation?
What did I say? I can't remember. What I said, but they did read it out. So I was...
Really? It was in English? Or
It's in English, yeah.
Right. Wow. Fantastic. Well, there we go. Did you screen capture it?
Yeah.
You have to send me the copy. We'll put it up on the Facebook site. So, what a magical. So, one of the interesting things about a live experience is that it's not maybe as memorable if it's online. Did you feel a certain feeling of I'm really alive now? Like you posted it up, you saw it, they responded to it, and you thought this makes me feel so alive.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you've got a co-host on your Korean pop song. Did they also do this? Did you live tweet it? Did people react to it when you...
It was sort of more closed circuit. So there was a lot of people that, that did sort of tweeted across things and stuff like that, but it was sort of more built to be closed circuit, so just the people that have paid for it and the performers themselves, so they could see it as well.
Well, look, we're pretty much there. What a great point to end on. This experience of it's almost full circle, right? That we started talking about you as a kind of cultural intermediary and that you were simply promoting it. But then, you've been recognized. There was a moment in this live gig where you participated. It was, what would Henry Jenkins say? One of my favorite theorists. You live in the dream there of participatory involvement. So well done, Taylor. Of course, if people get really excited about this and would actually like to listen to K-pop, when should they tune into your show?
Fridays at 7. I think it's 7. It might be 6. I just look at the website. I can't remember.
So look at the website, the Edge Radio 99.3 FM website, and you will see there on Friday night K-pop Everse. From, as you were explaining to me, universe, but you drop the uni and you put K-pop.
Yeah.
K-pop-iverse.
K-pop-iverse.
God, just rolls off the tongue.
And I am looking for a name change as well. So that might be coming in
Cultural
the future.
Intermediary, K-pop.
Yeah.
That rolls off the tongue. Well, look, thanks for listening to the inaugural show for Media Tackle. I feel like I need to do a sports theme now, like the wide world of sports. Well, maybe I'll play with that. Thanks, Taylor, so much for coming on. Do make sure you listen to his show on Friday nights. And, join us again next Thursday as we talk about everything in and around the world of media. Taylor, do you have any final words?
Goodbye.
Bye. Very good.